Hope Starts Here. That's the name of a new partnership working to create a world-class early childhood experience for the 80,000 young children in Detroit. The goal is to make sure that all children are born healthy, prepared for kindergarten, and ready to succeed in third grade and beyond. My next guests are from the two organizations co-chairing the initiative. Wendy Lewis-Jackson is with the Kresge Foundation, and Kalila Burt-Gaston is from W.K. Kellogg Foundation. Thanks you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So when I talk about this issue, I use the word crisis a lot. I know that's an overused word, but I think it's appropriate here when you think of all of the things that stop young people in the city from getting that sort of early success in place so that they can catapult to that later success that we need them to. The problems that we see in young people and adults start in that critical 0 to 5 window.
Well, definitely, in some ways crisis is very appropriate when you think about and look at the statistics for young children in our city. But what we've tried to do in this unprecedented partnership between our two foundations is begin to move the city more toward a call to action and really put together the platform that will allow Detroiters, from parents to neighborhood leaders to all kinds of community partners and a diverse set of community partners, to come together and create that path, that new way of working to better serve young children.
Who are some of the constituencies you're thinking of when you say call to action to the city? Who is it that you want at the table in this conversation?
Sure. Well, I mean, first and foremost, we want to listen to parents. We want to know what parents need, where parents feel that they need more assistance, but we're also reaching out to, advocates, policymakers, our civic and business leaders, and we also really have done a lot of outreach to small business owners, those daycare owners who are laboring day in and day out to serve our children and families.
Yeah. Some of this is about access to the things that you need. If you're a parent, especially of a young child or young children in the city, you just can't get to the things that that most other parents can. I'm thinking here of early child care or health care even. How much of that is about money and how much of that is about access, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. And one of the things that we've been able to do in this preliminary stage of the Hope Starts Here Early Childhood Partnership for Detroit is actually map the number of services that are available in the city. We've identified over 300 at this point. And so we have a myriad of different services. It's a fragmented system, if you will, and there are access issues, but also resource issues, for sure.
Yeah. We've seen the state put more money into early ed in the last, I guess, 6 years, really. It's not as much as we might want it to be, but it's making some difference in terms of that access, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think Great Start to Readiness really is a case study for how policymakers and parents and advocates come together, because we did see an increase in funding. In Detroit, we have 80,000 children, and we have about a 27,000 service gap. So we need...
which means 27,000 of those 80,000, there's not enough to even offer to them.
Exactly. So no classroom, no slot, no teacher. So we really need to create, I would say, local solutions. We have to figure out how to serve children and families here, and that includes, how do we create a pipeline of teachers? How do we build more facilities? And we also need to figure out how we, get resources to parents earlier, because this really does start with children being in their mother's wombs, right? And that healthy birth and healthy birth experience for moms.
Yeah. Prenatal care, of course, is key to that, and the city's health commissioner is really focused on that. I've talked to him a few times about making a difference. But when I talked to him about it, one of the things that we sort of discussed was how much of this is really just about poverty. And we don't talk about poverty as being the driver, I think, enough in these problems. All of the other sort of indicators we see, if you really think about it, they sort of have their roots in the fact that you've got such extreme poverty in such widespread sort of presence in the city. and then, of course, part of the reason you don't want to do that is because you think, well, then we can't do anything about it, or we're not willing to. Talk about the role of poverty in
Well,
these.
it is fundamental when you at least look at the stats, and more than half of young children in Detroit are in poverty. And it's a huge driver of inequality as well as the lack of access to opportunity.
Right.
So it has to be front and center in the work. And one of the things that we're doing in the partnership, and we've identified a number of best practices in terms of services that can address and better support young children in poverty and their families, but also we're going to need to look at how does economic development weave into this question? How does, what we're seeing in terms of a revitalized Detroit from a business standpoint weave into this issue? And so it's just not going to be the early childhood system being able to take this on alone.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. I mean, there are a number of national models that people are aware of, where you're really looking at, how do you also support parents? Workforce development programs. A number of employers who've stepped up nationally to offer high quality early childhood education, in their headquarters, whether that's evening hours, weekend hours. So we have to be responsive to the needs of families. I mean, we all are parents here, and so when you're working, you need high quality care that suits your family.
Yeah. When you think about this plan that you guys are going to put together, talk about some of the things that you would expect to be in it and that we would see sort of play out over the next couple of years.
Well, we've identified kind of the 6 critical areas as strategy teams that will develop recommendations that feed up into the overall plan. And there are some of the things that we know are fundamental to better supporting young children. How do we have a quality facility strategy for the city of Detroit where children are in safe spaces that are conducive not only to healthy development but also to learning.
Right.
How do we ensure that we have a well-financed system? So, the money is critical, and it has to be a blend, not just philanthropic resources, but state and local and federal resources as well. Looking at whole child development. So you mentioned the work of Dr. El Sayed and the health department. And the things that he's bringing to the table and the plans that he's thinking about as it relates to ensuring healthy development for young children here in the city. So we've identified these strategy teams, and each one will begin on December 19th and go through a process of developing the recommendations that will feed up into the larger plan.
One of the other issues that I think is helping to make this problem tougher to deal with is the depopulation and the sort of sparse neighborhood population, right? The density issue in Detroit. I mean, I grew up here in the 70s and 80s. This was a poor city then, but I could think of all of the things that were available right in my little neighborhood, right in the little sphere of the world that I lived in, that now I would have to maybe travel to go find, and if you don't have a car, that becomes different. How much does that sort of interfere with what you're trying to do, I guess?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we've worked with Illinois Finance Fund locally to map the current system from a location and a geography standpoint. And some of the neighborhoods that may be, quote unquote, depopulated from a housing standpoint actually have some of the highest concentrations of children. So what we need to really think about, and what we hope comes out of this process, is really a comprehensive vision that details how those hubs for early childhood education can sync up with investment in housing and in infrastructure, and how do we serve families where they are. But we've also mapped the system regionally, and there's great need even in our inner ring suburbs. So we started this process thinking that maybe some of the families who were close to that inner ring kind of boundary were maybe going to the suburbs, and what we found is that that's not true. Fundamentally, we have a service gap for the region when it comes to early childhood education.
Wow. 2 last questions. One, the timeline for this, and then second, how can parents or folks in the city who want to participate do that?
Well, crisis brings urgency, and so we are on an aggressive timeline with the Hope Starts Here process. We intend to have a draft plan and framework ready by the summer of 2017.
Okay, that is very fast.
Yes,
That's
yes.
only a couple of months away. And will there be places that that parents will see this and then know how to connect with it?
Sure. So some of our local partners are Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation, Detroit Parent Network, Matrix. We also have IFF and a number of kind of those seminal nonprofits who are working on this. And we have a network of about 25 more organizations, but people can definitely connect with us at hopestartsheredetroit.org. Follow us on Facebook and at the hashtag Hope Builds.
Okay. All right. Well, important work, and I'm glad you guys are doing it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.